showing some signs of life. Maybe not last night against the Pacers, but the identity at least is starting to be formed. Whatever the final product is, whatever that looks like in 3 months, in 12 months, in 18 months, that's to be determined. But Kool-Aid, you've had a chance to see at least this team go through some things this year. And you talked to Monty Williams Wednesday. Tell me about that experience, or lead into this video however you see fit.
Yeah. You know what? The one thing that we've talked about on this show, on this Wake Up Woodward show, and I've talked about it as well on Woodward Pistons, and I'm gonna do a stream over the weekend on this as well, is identity. Detroit teams, whenever they win, whenever they have this identity to kind of push towards to, it's always one that's easy to see. And that's been on my mind. We talked about it before we went to the practice, and we want to know, what is this team going to be about? Where they lacking talent? Because these games are going to be difficult to win because they just don't have the talent yet. I believe that they do have a good mix of young players on this squad who will be something down the road, but it's dependent on what Troy Weaver does. Now, aside from that, what can Monty Williams do to put this team in a position to forge the right identity? And I wanted to be able to kind of get his response on that. And JB, if you got that video, man, we'll cue it up and we'll talk about his comments after. I know that winning is always the goal, but what is the identity that this team is trying to forge in this post-All-Star break and post-trade deadline?
I mean, there's too many things to name. Obviously, there's a lot of areas to improve upon. We know that when Stewie's on the floor, we're a much better defensive team, and there have been moments where we've been a pretty good offensive team. We want to try to combine those things, and these last 28 improve the efficiency on both ends. And that's why I told our guys, we got to run through the tape. There's going to be a lot of teams that are playing for playoff positions. Some teams may have off nights where they're thinking about the end of the season or whatever the case may be. We don't want to be one of those teams. We want to be consistently growing every game. And as these 28 games wind down, we want to be able to look back and say that we ran through the tape. That's going to be something that we push and hold on to for the rest of the year.
Okay. Yeah, the word that you heard there, and he actually used that word multiple times through that media availability, and I know we're going to get some more opportunities to talk to him today, is run through the tape. We talked about wanting to see this team where you lack in talent be able to go out there and out-hustle your opponent and allow us to be able to see that no matter who's out, no matter who's in, because they were missing Isaiah Stewart, a little bit of news there. The charges that were against him, the assault charges from the Phoenix thing, they've been dropped. He's been suspended for 3 games, which means how bad people thought it was, I don't think it's that bad. It is going to cost him a little over $100,000 in game checks. And you could tell that the Detroit Pistons were definitely missing the type of toughness and the grit that he brings to the table. But when you're missing just kind of one player like that, it shows that you actually need a lot more guys that can get in the trenches and grind out and play tough and play physical the way that Isaiah Stewart can. I like Isaiah Stewart at 6'7". I think he's more like 6'7". You listen like 6'8", 6'9". You probably need somebody a little bit more tough
6'5".
in that starting lineup.
Yeah.
But
6'4".
that run through the tape, this is the identity as this team kind of moves forward. You're not turning around anything this season, but have some pride to say, you know what, we don't want to set the new franchise record at low for wins, which is 16. Have some pride, finish this season out well. Usually when you see runners, especially ones that are winning, you see them start to slow down as they get to the finish line tape. He wants to see this team run through that every single game. There's going to be wins, there's going to be losses. There might even be some blowouts. But what is your character? Who are you when you step out there on that field? What is it that Detroiters are able to identify with your squad? Obviously, Monty Williams is the type of coach who's used to coaching more veteran-laden teams, and that's why I do say, you know what, for this season alone, this team wasn't set up and designed for what he is as a coach. This team was set up and designed for the coach that Troy Weaver was going out to hire, and Kevin Ali, who's now the head coach. He's moved into the head coach role for the Brooklyn Nets. I said the New Jersey Nets. For the Brooklyn Nets.
You wouldn't be wrong.
Yeah, for the Brooklyn Nets. And I did want to see what this guy was going to be able to do to put these young players in the best possible spot to succeed. But now Monty Williams gets an opportunity to see what they have. Troy Weaver gets an opportunity to see what they have with this new group of guys. And this is the final stretch. You cannot return this next year. Next year, your identity has to be running through the tape, hustling, all-out toughness, and winning. You can't come back with this next year at all. At all.
So Kool-Aid, I got to ask you, in your interpretation of this, because your response right there actually had some clarity of what you want to see out of an identity. I don't know if I heard that out of Monty Williams. Like you asked a great question, something I'm looking for. Like, what is this identity of the team, or at least what are they trying to build? From my perspective, I didn't hear that out of him. But when he's talking about running through the tape, is that where you feel he's living in his identity? Like that's what he's trying to say. He wants a team that finishes games till the end, or how did you interpret it? Because to me, I didn't get the answer I wanted, and maybe that's just from not understanding in depth what he's trying to say.
Yeah. And that's a good thing, because when I first heard it, I too had to go back to the tape and kind of just listen to it again. And I do have the full 8-minute clip that of him talking to all of us. I like to do this a lot because these are great guys who've helped me a lot in that media room. James Edwards of The Athletic, Vinny Goodwill of Yahoo Sports wasn't there, but he generally is. Omar Sankofa of the Detroit Free Press, Mike Curtis of the Detroit News, and Corey Woods of the MLive. These guys asked some great questions there. There are a lot of good questions. Some of them, they make it out into the wild. Some of them, like I know you guys have seen some clips. I'm going to try and get some clearance so we can talk about it later. Monty Williams and Jaden Ivey. And you kind of get a feel for what he's hoping to get. Some of the questions, though, are they get redundant over the course of a season. And so when I went back and I listened to the clip, I felt like he summarized in this running through the tape this aspect that we generally want to hear. Now, we know when Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, when they step up to the podium, they're a lot more direct. They're a lot more breaking it down. They're a lot more micro and less macro as it relates to this identity that you want to form. And I believe it's because of the natural kind of grit that you need to play football. It's the terminology, it's the words. And I believe that's what made the Detroit Bad Boys, though. They went and they did what? They adopted a football mentality. They went and they adopted a football identity. Not that they didn't identify with Detroit, but I believe that kind of grit, that determination, that physicality, that never stop playing, this other team has all of these stars on it, and the 2004 Pistons did it too, going to work. They adopted an identity from the city, as well as things that are generally associated with the football teams as well. Monty Williams, he used a racing reference. I don't know how physical or tough that is, and it just doesn't necessarily resonate with who we are and what we're used to hearing out of our teams. So I get where you're coming from with that. I wanted to be able to personally hear him say, you know what, defense is going to be what we're focused on. Hustling, making sure that nobody's beating us to the loose balls, because we can all see and tell this team is not that talented. We can look at the lines and see the talent. Not just young talent, because do the Pistons have some good young talent? Yes, but they are very inexperienced. They're still trying to build up chemistry. But I want to know that this team can go out there and punch the other team in the nose, like what Dan Campbell said in his first year. You know what? We're gonna scratch. We're gonna claw. We're gonna bite a kneecap. We're gonna get up. We're gonna bite a chunk out your butt. Like, I mean, this was Dan Campbell, bro. Hey, Dan Campbell said it. Am I lying?
No.
He said it cheek, bro. And that's what I'm saying, though. You know what? He didn't care. He did not care. He said this is going to be the identity of the team. And sometimes I think breaking it down to the specifics of that allows your team to absolutely say, you know what? We're probably not there yet, and we need to get there.